Hello, it's Peter Merrick, and I'm speaking to Kyle Kemper, a fellow Canadian, and we're going to be learning about cryptocurrency. Because in this day and age where so much is happening with fiat currency, everyone's starting to look for something alternative. And fiat currency, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's also called fractional banking, which allows banks and governments and their federal banks or national banks to create money out of nowhere. And that means your money is worth nothing. So Kyle, can you share with us a little understanding about yourself? From my understanding, just to start off with, in 2013, you were in Ottawa and someone introduced you to crypto.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so much for creating space for this discussion. Yeah, so in 2013 is when I had my Bitcoin awakening, I'll say. I was working as a server at the time at my family restaurant called the Clock Tower. It's a brew pub that just caters to all sectors of society. It's a really, really great kind of experience and time in my life. And while I was doing that, someone came in and started talking all about Bitcoin. And before that moment, a little context as to why that was so significant was, in 2007, the movie Zeitgeist came out. It talks about big myths in society and went into 9/11 as one of the really great myths. And now that we're in this age of Corona, which is another total myth, like it's completely fake in my opinion. We're seeing this, and then the key part, the first part was like a big example, the second part was 9/11 as the myth, and third part was like, well, who would possibly be behind this? And they went into the history of central banking and how the few hold the power to create money, and along the lines of like, I care not who nation elects so long as they control their money. And that really kind of made me think about, okay, yeah, at the core, we can be thinking that as citizens we are engaged in the direction of the nation, but when our monetary system is compromised, then we really aren't in control. We're just kind of playing a game at a lower level on the game board. And so Ron Paul came around in 2008, and
Yep.
and he was really inspirational. He wrote a book called End the Fed, Revolution. It was wonderful. And I learned a lot, and I'm a huge fan. He's probably my favorite politician of all time. It's Ron Paul. It's just a total legend.
I actually, as I get older, I have to share with you, people aren't going to like this, but Gaddafi I'm starting to like.
Like whom?
Gaddafi, the one who was killed.
Oh, like Muammar
Yeah.
Gaddafi?
The reason is he was going to get off. He was going to go to gold. And he also created something called the man-made river, which they found an aquifer, or they found enough water to turn the Sahara into the most plush place. And one thing that's never covered is when NATO went in and did the bombing and destroyed Libya and killed Gaddafi, they got rid of this. And he was giving everyone cows and water, and anybody can go on YouTube.
Yeah, that was like the real threat, and our good friends at CNN went out there and painted him as the mad dog, and unleashed a vicious info psyop against him that ultimately resulted in his murder and the rape and pillage of Libya. Because yes, he was accumulating gold. He did not trust the global system, the US dollar, whatsoever. And he was actually trying to move North Africa onto a gold standard. And Saddam Hussein like in fact also was trying to move Iraq off of US dollar hegemony as well,
Yes.
and onto the euro, and onto, you know, and ultimately they both paid the price. And that's what happens in centralization, and when you have like individual leaders who are in control of this. And that's why decentralization, in my opinion, is the key. And, you know, just to close out the story I was telling earlier, you
Yep.
know, from Ron Paul, like looking at sound money, and really the cause of a lot of this chaos is the central banks and the power that they hold, and the power that they wield. And so the, you know, when I saw Bitcoin, it had this, you know, this feeling, it could, like this, you know, the sense that this represents potentially like a scalpel to the cancer that is the, you know, this Federal Reserve banking system. And, you know, to be fair, that, like, you know, the world got to where it is with the Federal Reserve bank system, and it's not about fighting that model. It's not about like trying to, you know, fight it and take it down. Bitcoin is simply a new model, and it's a new model that makes the existing one obsolete. And the invention of Bitcoin and subsequent cryptocurrencies and the distributed ledger technology, blockchain technology, is it's an invention akin to like gunpowder. Once it's invented, it cannot be uninvented. So the world has it now, and you know, we're going to go forward. And yes, the banks will hold on. They're not completely obsolete now, but they're unnecessary. It's no longer necessary to use banks to transfer money internationally, to transfer money digitally. They had a complete monopoly on that until Bitcoin came around, and Bitcoin solved some very key problems, and it enabled anybody to spin up a wallet and be able to send value from one person to another, despite where they are on the planet. Completely open source, digital programmable money with a monetary policy that is based in openness, transparency, and scarcity, as opposed to fiat money systems like the US dollar, the
Right.
Canadian dollar, the euro, that have unlimited supply and have individuals with the capacity and the capability to print money as they see fit. And
Right.
when that situation is in place, then, you know, on a made up war for fake reasons, they want to launch a war, or, you know,
Yep.
this fake virus, you know, they can spend all the you know, they can raise debt and create money on the backs of the people, and effectively transfer wealth from nation states into, you know, into the private corporations and then those closest. So it's really a vicious cycle, and that's why I, like, you know, look towards, you know, Bitcoin as a better step, and an excellent, you know, alternative, and believe that, you know, everybody should download a wallet and acquire some Bitcoin or crypto, and learn how to use it, be familiar with sending and receiving, understand what it means to be in control of your own keys, because in the world of Bitcoin, it can be very much like the world of traditional finance, where, you know, you can hold on to a bunch of cash if you want, or you can give it to the bank, and hey, the bank might give you a little bit of interest in return for your money, but ultimately you're giving them your money, so they're the ones who are holding it. And if you want to get your money back, you got to go to the bank and ask them for your money back. And sometimes in situations when you go to the bank, you can't get your money back. We're seeing that in China right now. We're seeing that.
Right.
We've seen that in a number of other situations. We saw that in Canada after the trucker rally.
Well,
Shut down
actually,
people's
I
bank
want to
accounts.
share with you something. I have an interview with Kim Moody, and he's one of the top tax professionals in Canada. And he was leading the charge to protect Canadian businesses in 2018, because the Liberal government decided out of nowhere to attack small businesses tax-wise about how they can save money. People who would like leverage their entire lives to make a business. And the second shoe dropped in 2020 because they weren't even allowed to operate. But the year before, something really interesting was put into the Canadian budget. And what that was is it was in the back pages. No one ever reads them. They're about page 250. And it said the Canadian government could have your bank accounts seized if a financial institution was to go under, and they would issue you shares of the defunct institution. So that means that they can do what Cyprus did and just go in and just say, this is our money and we'll just give you
Yeah,
shares of
effectively,
the
like
company.
if there's so if there's a bank run, they can do a bail in. They can basically
Yes,
take your money. And we might see that as one of the thoughts around the CBDC and the digital and a Canadian issue digital currency
right.
won't be like Bitcoin. It won't be
Of course it
open,
won't.
enabling anybody to open a wallet. It'll be a permission network where you can be like as an episode of Black Mirror, you can be just erased. You can be blocked. If your
Right.
social credit score drops to too low, you can be blocked. Purchases could be banned. You've been spending too much money on gas, Mr. Merrick. You've had enough.
Well, there was a situation that happened to someone running in Florida right now for the Republican, I guess, nominee for the District of Orlando. And her name's Laura Loomer. And they completely cut off her credit cards. They wouldn't let her bank there. Everybody just deplatformed her, so she had no control. And that's something, as a Canadian, there was billions of dollars flew out of Canada because, the fact that they could just come in and say, we just don't like your view, something that was legal a week before, they say, well, now you're less than human. And one thing I wanted to ask you, and these are questions that, you might have the answers to. When Bitcoin was created, no one really knows who that person is. And there's been rumors that, Epstein had a portion of it. Because I want to step back. Because if I look at the internet and I look at who created the internet was created, military that created it. And in essence, they gave it free, and it's almost like a honey trap, right? Like they gave it to us for free. And right now they take it all away. And one of the concerns that a lot of people have is because we don't really know who created it, it could be a way of actually getting people in so they could strangle these people or actually identify these people. Because I know that Bitcoin can be traceable. I don't know about the other currencies, the other cryptocurrencies, but there's like an internal, there's a flaw in that I can find out who is selling it.
Right. Well, it's not. I mean, it's a it's not it's a feature. It's not a flaw. It's a public network. So every transaction that takes place on the Bitcoin network is public. It's not Kyle sent Peter this amount. It's this address sent this other address, this many Bitcoin at this time. And it's a ledger that can't be altered. So if I send you some value today, we can't erase the record of that tomorrow. So it's terrific from an accounting perspective and for a radical transparency perspective. And if this technology, if the public blockchain were, say, applied to, I don't know, public institutions and public spending of funds, this would be perfect. We could have real transparency of our public institutions and our public funding. I don't know why the heck nobody talks about that. Let's just see some real clear radical transparency when it comes to public spending and public funding, and those of public servants and the efforts that they spend. But on a personal note, there is technology within Bitcoin, within wallets, that do some work to enhance your privacy towards you can just download on an app on a phone, download a wallet, or on an offline computer, you can create a wallet. And with that address, anybody can send it to you. And it's not like when you sign up for a wallet, you don't identify yourself to the wallet. You don't say it's Kyle Kemper, especially with the self-custody wallets. If you're using a bank, a crypto bank, like a Coinbase or a Kraken or a Binance, see there's some of the larger kind of crypto banking institutions and exchanges. They know who you are. They can take your name and associate it. They can think that you're the one sending funds into it. You don't necessarily know that. They
So
can
that defeats the purpose, right? By using
suppose. I mean, it lessens the privacy. There's a lot of information out there. There's definitely privacy concerns with Bitcoin, and but there are also privacy coins, that do a much stronger job of providing anonymity within
right.
payments, which is
Yeah.
something we have with cash. Cash is a fungible
Well, you know what? You
means
know, my
of
favorite thing is
transaction.
my favorite thing are gold eagles.
Yeah, and gold eagles
Like,
are great. I mean, it's you'll have a tough time transacting a gold eagle to purchase
all right.
food or clothes or a house or something. But honestly, you you can find the
Yeah.
exchange points for those.
Yeah.
Just like you might not be able to purchase food or home or clothes with Bitcoin either, but you
Right.
can find the exchange points. So
Right.
ultimately, it's up to you to decide: do I want to be in gold eagles? Do I want to be in silver? Do I want to be in Bitcoin? Do I want to be in the stock market? Do I want to be in the crypto gambling markets of all these tokens that are super volatile and there can be huge gains, but there's also incredible losses, and it's largely unregulated, and so there's tribes that roll around and manipulate the markets on a daily basis.
I think
And
that
then I would also say,
one of the concerns that someone brought up to me, because I'm of the old world, like I started off in the securities industry, was that if I had created my own currency and I issued 1 million of that currency and you gave me $1,000 for one of my coins, I'm a billionaire because the value is 1 billion. And
right,
that is
yeah.
a big concern
Well,
that
that's
some
not
people have.
I mean, that's that's an extreme and incredibly simple,
Right.
example about how a market cap could be determined.
Right.
And yeah, if you set that, if there's one instance of a price setting, but that's like the price of the Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is trading like, tens of billions of dollars a day,
Right.
across the markets of legitimate buys and sells to create, a global price equilibrium in the
Yeah.
markets. It brings other currency markets. You can do foreign exchange by going into Bitcoin and into another currency, as opposed to the US dollar being that global. You can treat Bitcoin now you can go from Canadian dollars to Bitcoin to US dollars, and do it less, in some cases, more efficiently than you would get from a bank.
Want to explore that because that's pretty interesting. So let's imagine someone sells their home in Canada and they decide, I'm going to relocate. So instead of looking at the exchange rates every day, and the 5 banks charge like a percent, whatever the rate is on top of that, and maybe you can get it down to 50 basis points depending how large it is. What would I do if I wanted, let's say I sold my house $2 million in Canada, and I decide I want to leave Canada and I'm looking for the most equitable way of taking my money out and not having a middle person? What would I do in that transaction with Bitcoin? Like, how would you do it? Let's imagine I'm moving from Canada to Panama and I want to take all my assets out of Canada. It's all liquid. And I want to use a crypto, and let's say it's Bitcoin, and I want to actually buy a home and buy some investments in Panama. So let's go through that transaction.
All right, let's use the 2 million as the example in that. So if it was 2 million, you got two options. Yeah, let's say two options.
Yeah.
Well, there's two options. First option is you use an exchange. So you go to like Coinberry in Canada, for example, or CoinSquare or BitBuy. There's a bunch of different exchanges. You deposit $2 million with them. You have a balance of $2 million. You trade it for Bitcoin. You then withdraw the Bitcoin to your own custodial wallet. That's your own. And then you now have $2 million less the transaction fees to
What would the transaction fees be?
You're probably
I'm not holding you to it.
looking at less than 1%.
Okay.
To look probably less than 1% to get into it. That's one option to the exchanges. The other option would be to do as an OTC dealer, which is a little more private, which is like I want to buy $2 million worth of Bitcoin. Call somebody up that they deal directly with larger volume transfers. They're like, okay, they take, they ask who you are, and they do a little bit of KYC, but more private than necessarily the exchanges. And then, there's usually an escrow account or like, a lawyer involved. It gets sent, the money gets wired, but you provide your Bitcoin address, then the Bitcoin get transferred. The exchange happens. They take maybe 1% on that deal too. And then you have Bitcoin. And then you go to Panama and you've got Bitcoin. So you can pay for shit with Bitcoin, or you can find an OTC dealer in Panama, or you find a crypto supporting service in Panama, or if you have a friend in Panama who has Panamanian dollars or US dollars and wants to buy Bitcoin. It's like, okay, here's $10,000, or if you want to buy a house down there, and let's say it's 500,000. Well, maybe someone will be willing to sell you their place for 500,000. More and more crypto and Bitcoin is being accepted, and buyers and sellers want Bitcoin for their property. And I'll say it, Bitcoin at $25,000 where it is right now, like this feels like this is a good time, in my opinion, and based on historically what's taken place in the market. Like, we were as high as 60,000, and then it crashed down to 20,000, and now we're at 25. It might stay in this zone for a while, but it's not 60,000 that you're buying at right now, having not corrected down. Because like when I got into Bitcoin, it was $120, and then it went to like 260, back to 100, then it went to 1,000, back to 200, 300, and then went up to 20,000, and then went back to just over like 1,500, 2,000, and then it went to 60,000, and I always found their floor like 20,000, like 19,000. So it's like it's very like it's it's a cycle that's kind of been repeating itself. And more than anything,
just to share from my experience, I'm a little older than you, so I suffered the .com era, where people were just on a napkin. They were making money. Now Amazon came out and went public, and it went up to $132, and it dropped down to $6. This is the crash of 2001. When the .com bubble. What happened was there was a huge shakeout within the industry, within technology. And then after that big shakeout, then the titans happened. Like, I'll give you an example. In Toronto, I used to run I've got this fly that just won't leave me alone. It's this little fly, and it's going in my ear, it's going from my, but I think I'm not a Jane, so I think I just killed it. So what happened was I used to run these seminars back in the 1990s, and I had this one guy come to he presented, and he had gotten mezzanine financing. He got $40 million from IBM and a bunch of other people. A year later, he came back to me looking for a CIO job, and because it had shaken out, and he was trying to create something similar to Amazon. And at the time, I didn't understand what that was. So with cryptocurrency, if there's a change, because of the new technology, there's going to be a lot of companies that came out with a coin that might not be here, and there will be big winners at that point, because it's sort of like a Darwinism, like survival of the fittest. So it goes up and it goes down, because the example is Amazon went up to $132 and then it dropped down to $6, and then it's
right. And Amazon was just a company that built on top of the internet too.
Right.
Like, you know, like Bitcoin would have been like, you know, if you could have bought a stock in the actual internet,
Right.
like, you know, just the internet as an open network that anybody could participate in. Like, that's like where kind of Bitcoin lies. And then, yes, there's been like a lot of projects, and a lot of the projects utilizing the blockchain technology and tokenization have issued their own coins. And, you know, some of them have utility purposes, some of them are considered securities. They go up and down. Some of the ways that they're offered can be a little bit sketchy. Some of the ways can be a little bit more legitimate. You know, there's definitely all sorts of influences that go into moving those different prices of the coins, and it's become a new, you know, a new market altogether. And I think when we see like this mega corrections in the market, like, yeah, it weeds out a lot of kind of bullshit projects. And like, you know, when the market is on fire,
Yeah.
it's everything kind of gets a little bit manic, to be honest.
Yes.
There's like just a lot of money being thrown around, and it's, you know, it all becomes about the money, when at the core, this Bitcoin was never really about the money. It was about fixing the money. It's about decentralization.
I fully agree. I had a friend of mine who got involved with a coin that somehow was involved with China, and it went from nothing to $80, and then it collapsed. And it had a lot of pumping that actually happened with it. And sometimes I watch a gentleman who's in Mexico. He's also Canadian. And I started off in a pump and dump shop when I first graduated in 1991, and I got into the financial industry. And do you know how that works? Pump and dump. I'm the only one selling, no one's buying it. So I call you up, Kyle, and I said, hey, let me get you into $500. And I said, watch it. And then it goes up, and it's so thin, because I'm the only one selling, and I raised the price up. Now it's $1,000. And I basically convince you that it's even going to go up more. Now, of course it is, because I got control of it. But I'm only selling it. And then 3 months to the day after the last one sold, it goes to zero. And then you have people who chase their losses, because what they end up doing is they go back to these people maybe a year later, and they say, hey, there's a merger happening and going into this. The reason why I bring that up is I've been watching this guy down in Acapulco, and there's all these new coins that come out, and he seems like he's into the pump and dump, where there's a new coin, and I don't know his involvement in the coin. Bitcoin is a known commodity, but there's a lot of coins, and he's taking advantage of, and you mentioned it, greed, because this was put to make the money system democratic, to be able to know that it was going to be controlled. But at the same time, there's been a lot of bad knockoff. Like, I like your shirt, but your shirt is a knockoff of CNN, right? And I like that shirt. But I know there's a lot of knockoffs happening from something that was authentic. And how does somebody figure that out? Because, you know, it's like, hey, I missed out on Bitcoin, but hey, I can buy this for like 10 cents, right? And I'm going to put $20,000 into it because I have dreams that it's going to be worth.
And honestly,
$8.
I mean, like, you know, and a lot of projects, like, you know, they're not aiming like to find the next Bitcoin. Like, that's really tough. like Bitcoin, like just recognize when Bitcoin first came out and it was worth barely nothing, the risk level of like, investing in it was super high. So obscure, it was
Yeah,
weird. It was like, a bunch of cypherpunks and then libertarians and then like, the financial anarchists, like, who got in, and then like, some of the artists got in, and the burners started getting in, and then Main Street and Wall Street, and then Wall Street got in, and Main Street got in, and like, and we're seeing like there's more and more adoption. I think it's like, we're probably like in Canada over like 10% of people actually holding crypto, if not much higher than that. How many people actually like have ever done a transaction with a self custody wallet? On the other hand, it's much lower. A lot of people hold Bitcoin. They never actually send a transaction. They don't know
right,
how it works. So it's like, they're holding it and using it purely for greed. They don't
right.
understand what's really important about it. And it's the fact that you don't need to use a bank any longer. It enables you to, without asking permission, be able to transact value, to build systems of value creation, value exchange that have inbuilt currencies, or that have a currency, a payment system that can be designed without permission from anyone. You're not having to go to the clearing networks. You're not having to go to the payment providers. You don't have to go to Stripe. You don't have to go to Square. You don't need to go PayPal.
Well,
None
that's a
of
big
that crap.
that to me is the big thing. Not have because Laura Loomer about 5 years ago, because the powers that be didn't like her opinion, decided to deplatform her as a person. They took her off Twitter first, and they took her off YouTube, and then they took away her bank accounts. They depersoned her. And in essence,
Yeah.
people, and that's my big concern right now, because in Canada, what happened should be the scariest thing for anybody who wants their independence, that the government can come in without any due process, take away someone's hard-earned life energy, which is really calculated in, dollars or bitcoins or whatever. It's just how we translate, work that we've done. And that's something that is fearful. So I have a question to ask you, Kyle. I know last time I was listening to a podcast that you did, you were writing a book. So did you complete the book?
I wrote a booklet. So I've written two books. One book
Right.
called The Unified Wallet,
Yes.
Unlocking the Digital Golden Age, which is
Can
a
you
good
hold
kind
that
of,
up one more time?
I've kind of modified this cover. I put a
Is there
Doge on it.
what's the symbolism? Tell me the symbolism. I like it. I want to know.
Okay, yeah. So this, I don't know. Let me grab another copy. So this is the actual like, the cover of it. So
Yeah.
it's like a key in the center, and then it's got all the different kind of coins around it. And like there's like a voting, there's like identity, there's Bitcoin, there's tickets, there's all sorts of different symbols around it. In the back, there's like hieroglyphics inferring, a golden age transition. Hey, sweetie.
Cute.
And yeah, so this is all about like, how we can take control of our sovereignty and selves and money assets. And
And where can we find that book?
this one's on Amazon, and
Excellent.
it'll be shipped pretty quickly to you. I don't know, it's like 20 bucks or something.
And how about the second one, the booklet?
And this, yeah, the booklet, it's called Canada, How We Return Power to the People. It's like Canada O, and DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And I really like, one of the promises of blockchain technology and Bitcoin has been voting, and transparent voting.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have like, been talking about that because, and we can get kind of deep on that, but we won't go there fully now. But my premise is like, we're now to the point where, dude, crypto industry, like the Bitcoin ecosystem has been around for over 12 years now. There's been a
Yeah.
lot of innovation. The ease of use of it all has taken great form. We saw just in the beginning, Bitcoin, the wallets have gotten much better. You know,
Yes.
the whole ecosystem of permission chains, decentralized storage is now in place through IPFS and services like that. NFTs created where Bitcoin is like a fungible token, meaning one piece of a Bitcoin is no different than another piece of Bitcoin.
Yes.
NFTs are unique tokens, which each one is a little bit different from each other, but they lie on the blockchains. So you can do all sorts of interesting things around titles, deeds, certifications, identities, memberships, many
So
things
my
like
my
that.
question is this, Kyle. So you have a consulting practice on Bitcoin. Like how are you? Because I know that you're one of the early adopters, so you're an expert. So let's say, what advice or what type of consulting services do you provide?
Yeah, so advisory, planning, entry, strategy. Those are some of the services that I provide. Whether it's like, you know, just an individual micro to macro, you know, I've
Is there a minimum that that you would like? Like how, like if I wanted to seek you out, would it be like 50,000, 100,000, like what they enter the crypto market, or also to advise people to create wallets and things like that? Do you also advise
Yeah, it's like, you know,
exchanges?
I don't know. I really like to just kind of help everybody. So it's like, you know, if there's like, you know, a question that can be answered openly, like I'd prefer just to like honestly use Patreon and have people tell me like ask me, you know, how do I do this is my situation, and then be able to create in an open fashion, like, hey, like, you know, here XYZ person, not going to name them, is in this situation. Here's, you know, here's some different approaches they do, so everybody can learn, because
Right.
I don't want to be like, you know, like I mean, this is maybe not the best like personal business financial decision to make about just trying to help people on this, but this is what I like to do because I'm an evangelist for the entire ecosystem, and so it's try and help. But on a direct level, if people want direct connection, yeah, it's just there really is like, you can look at smaller levels, like, you know, if you want to invest less than $50,000, just sign up with Coinbase or Coinberry and buy on there. If you want to
Right.
invest $1 million, like, yeah, use an OTC dealer. If you want to invest like, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, okay, well, let's talk, and let's look at like, you know, setting up a secure multi-sig wallet ecosystem, you know, to assure that your funds are like, you know, super secure, and the purpose and the, you know, the means by which you're doing it are efficient and effective. If you're a business that's looking to adopt, like, there's strategic consulting that can take place. Right now, like, you know, I'm not focusing heavily on consulting. I'm building a business right now called Raise. We're creating a securities platform for utilizing NFTs for issuing compliance security tokens.
Yes.
Is a total beast.
Now you also do events and public speaking, right? You're represented by Red Pill Speakers. People who are asking the uncomfortable questions and delivering solutions.
Contact him if you want to book me to speak. I have spoken at many different things.
Yes.
I'm very open and accessible. I've hosted conferences around crypto. I've organized masterminds and you know, facilitated design thinking sessions to really dive into problems and bring people together and bring communities together. I'm a huge believer in, you know, the fact that we can't fix the system by fighting it. If you want to change something, we need to build new systems that make the existing ones obsolete. I don't believe that, you know, resistance movements will be successful, but acceptance movements will be successful.
Can you give me definitions of that quickly, the difference between the two? I just want to know that.
Yeah, so when you're coming at something from like an antagonistic point of view, where it's like this is what we don't want to happen, or like the government, for example, we need to overthrow the government, like going at the government, or we're going to fix the system by fighting it. Even in Canada, like let's fix the system by putting the conservatives in play.
No,
It's like it's not going to change anything. It's just
I agree.
the same color. There's different little bit of spin, and maybe this guy might look a little bit different, but look who he's surrounded by. It's all the same people.
Yep.
So it's like, no. So what do we need to do? We need to build a new system that makes this existing one obsolete, and that's by looking back to what the tenets of democracy are. And that is, and why do we have representative democracy? We have representative democracy in theory because in 1800s, 1900s Canada and United States, you did not have the technology for people to vote collectively on issues. So you needed to elect individuals from geographical regions to come together, to cast the votes on behalf of their constituents. And now in this age where we are now, where we have the Star Trek device that can do
Right.
like so much, we can vote. It's got biometrics. Like let's
Yeah.
enable people to actually vote on these issues, so that instead of having these bullshit these terrible elections that are like so charged with words like climate and identity and this and that and these acronyms, and it's like it's just all like so fake and it's so phony, and it's like where no policy really ever gets discussed, and it's like, okay, and the vote happens on it, and then in the legislative session they start putting through these crazy bills like
Right.
passing the emergency act, for example. Like if Canadians actually had the chance to read and like to understand what that was doing, Canadians would have voted like 95 to 99% against that. Like, like no doubt, no way that shit would have passed. But instead, they triggered it as they used political jockeying to use the Liberals and the NDPs to hold on to salaries to guarantee themselves salaries and pensions.
Well, I don't think the
And
liberals are the liberals and the Greens are not in. They're all part of the same dirty bird.
no,
All
yeah,
of them. They're all
no,
sucked from the same tip.
well, and they're like afraid, and they're really, and the idea of like the people being able to vote on things, like they don't. There's like this notion. Saw this post the trucker thing where, like, this political elite class, they look down on like the trucker movement, and they just dismissed it as like uneducated. And it was not uneducated. Like these are really intelligent people. You might be super fucking educated, but you're a
Yep.
goddamn idiot.
I
If you
agree.
like, if like you have no intelligence, you can be educated and have no intelligence. Because then I think we've seen a lot of that, and it's time for people to really like, just take a step back, and breathe, and like, and this got me really irked talking down on that gathering that took place in Ottawa and just dismissing it as uneducated. And like these are passionate people who are
Right.
ask good questions that you're not willing to entertain. And when I open and try and enter a dialogue, like actually just have a discussion, or heaven forbid, a debate where like we can debate things
Right.
openly and we don't get into like, personal attacks, or it gets so flamed up and charged that like we just run away. Like I think that's what happened. That's what's happened within some of my circles, probably happened within your circles, probably happened within all of our circles, of especially of those of us who kind of saw through this myth and have viewed it as the control specter that it is. And quite frankly, like you mentioned it earlier, like the Canadian business class got destroyed.
Yeah.
Destroyed. Like my family restaurant that I worked at, like destroyed. The small, hardworking entrepreneurs who ran brick and mortar family businesses got wrecked the last few years. It's been a genocide against
Yeah.
the small businesses in Canada, combined with the genocide against all Canadians in the form of these experimental injections that are modifying the basic code of our being.
I agree.
About like, you know, this
Yeah.
trigger word.
No, I listen. I fully,
You know,
I
and
fully,
anything you can do, Peter, towards, you know, helping more people think, because at the end of
oh,
the day, like, you know, the only path forward in all this for us to like regain a sense of like start waging sense
well, I want to ask you a
amongst each
question.
other.
I've come to the conclusion that, and what do they call it? Like playing characters or something, like participating.
NPCs.
Yeah, or like conscious, because I've come to the conclusion so many people I knew, and I started thinking about how they're like out to lunch. I'll share with you one story that blew my mind. My expertise was in tax in Canada, and I'm working on a situation in Canada, and I had to call the top tax lawyer, and he had just happened to be down in Florida. And I said, hey, don't you love being in Florida, being liberated and everything? Because I haven't worn a face nappy in about 2 years, maybe even more, because I'm anemic, right? So I need to wear one of this because I don't get enough oxygen already. So I say, don't you really love the fact that you're, you know, like you're able to be free? And he goes and says to me, oh, I always wear a mask when I go in. I'm going, God, you're embarrassing me as a Canadian, right? That's like one. Number two, he said, I'm triple. And I'm going like, oh my God, like that means all the stuff I acted as if it was real, like money's real, and you know, the income tax and all these rules are real, and I have to be scared. It causes me the question. So one of the great things that happened during this time for me was, because so much went bad, it caused me to step out. We're having a real conversation. I don't think in the world prior to 2020 I would be able to have these real conversations with real people. I no longer am in the business of trying to convince anybody of anything, because I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm a little less connected than you are. So if I can go on a browser other than Google and do some interesting queries and find out stuff that makes me ask questions, if someone hasn't done that after 2.5 years, there's no hope. They're chasing their losses now. Like that's literally what it is. However, what's really important, and this is why I wanted to have you on, for those who choose to ask the question, then they have to start looking at, how do I get off this treadmill? And the treadmill was here before you or I were born. Why question anything? I want to share with you something I wrote a few months ago. It was asking why I believe what I believe. And one was, I followed everyone. And I was a good Canadian. I'm going to follow what everyone tells me because that's what we do. And we live in the greatest country in the world because that's what we were raised, right? Greatest country in the world. Well, then the other one was, I was too busy, right? Because I just wanted to be, I was all focused on my ego. I wanted to accumulate things. I wanted to get laid. I wanted to go and, you know, why focus on why things don't work? Because maybe I make a mental note, but I wouldn't stop. Number three, I was too lazy. Why would I? Because it requires asking a question, takes a lot of mental energy and a lot of time. Too stupid. You know, I'm not asking a question. And the worst is, I'm too frightened to ask the question, because God forbid, by asking the question, I'm going to be ridiculed. I'm going to be outcasted, and the fear that I will be silenced, and worse, and this is what fears me in Canada, I might have my life taken away. Because, you know, people who ask questions that are not supposed to be asked, especially in the former Soviet Union or in China, they seem to disappear. Well, you want to know something? At the end of the day, I've come to the conclusion, I'm going to share with you. All you have is your self-dignity and your soul, because you and I can win battles, but we lose the war. And the war is this physical body leaves. I don't know anybody who's left. And I want to thank you for being on this talk, but I have one question I want to ask, and we'll decide whether when we do the edit. Why did you choose to step forward, Kyle? Because you could have lived a very quiet life and never making a famous association. Why did you choose to do that? If you can.
I mean, I wouldn't say I consciously shows anything. I mean,
But you came out and no one would know because your
someone
name is
asked me to
Kyle
do it.
Kemper.
Someone asked me to do an interview. I was like, okay, I'll do an interview. And then and then I did a big interview with Western Standard. And like that was right when the truck started rolling, and that one went that was a really good interview. And it was like,
It was a great interview.
we went really deep on all sorts of things. And I just speak openly because I mean, like you must stand up. Like it doesn't matter. Like that, you mentioned fear. Living in fear is not living at all. Like fear is the only enemy that exists, and if we allow fear to control us, we're operating at a low vibration.
I
We're operating
agree.
at the bottom vibration. It's not a way to live. That's a way to live as a slave. If you live under fear, you are a slave. Do not be a slave. You don't need to be a slave. You are not a slave. Anybody listening who feels like they're living in perpetual fear, like break through that. Recognize the fear. Recognize there's a movie with Harrison Ford called Clear and Present Danger.
I remember that movie.
Don't even worry about watching the movie. Who cares about the movie? Just the title of it. Clear and Present Danger versus fear. Like danger is real. It's something to be conscious of. If you're driving along and in front of you a moose steps out, danger, danger, danger. If you're not going to drive at night because there might be a moose on the road, fear. Fear is the decision there. You can drive, just be aware of the dangers in society and the dangers that you're going to be facing, and as they come up, deal with them head on and fight them. Recognize the fear of getting sick, getting a flu, getting the sniffles, a cough,
Well,
versus the danger of putting putting foreign nanotechnology into your body. That is dangerous. I have 5 kids. I'm responsible.
I want to share something about that. I truly believe that one of the reasons on a subconscious level you came out is you're in the game. It's not about your life anymore. That's how I look at it. I live my life. I'm 53 years old. I actually lived the best life. I remember no one really cared. It was embarrassing. We played road hockey, and then your mom would say, come in, because you had to play, eat dinner, and you're embarrassed. But there's no phones, there's nothing. And that was you're 1985, I'm 1969. So we had none of that stuff. And now everybody has this fear. This fear, and the number one thing that
there's connection, and there's.
But you know what? One thing I want to share, and maybe you've noticed it, because I truly believe it's almost become evil. Literally, I never believed in evil before. I never questioned as much as I came to, and I realized that it's your soul. That's all they want. That's all that's wanted, and it's whether people don't ask the questions, so they become part of the system, and they don't know, they get sucked into it. And one of the things that I want to leave with is Viktor Frankl, who's one of my favorite thinkers, because he saw the worst in humanity and he saw the best in humanity. He was a survivor of Auschwitz, but most people don't know he was the heir to Freud, because he took over the psychiatry department over at Vienna when Freud left England or fled to England. And his greatest observation was the greatest human freedom is to choose one's own belief, to choose one's own way. And that is, you can break from the system at any time. And the fear is always worse than the reality. And no one does anything to you without your permission. As a Canadian, I've heard so many people have chosen because they had fear of things being taken away.
Yeah,
but
no one
did anything.
No, exactly. I know. It's all just the general, psyop. A lot of personalities, a lot of souls, are they decided that they consciously took the blue pill. And the Matrix is a very appropriate kind of reference here, because the blue pill is taken out of fear for the truth. and the fear for the reality and understanding, like, you know, the nature of the beast, but also the nature of what it means to be alive, what it means to be human. And, you know, you can go, you don't, by taking the red pill, doesn't mean you have to go fight the machines. Like, no,
Right.
you don't have to do that. You just need to be aware of like, you know, the differences. And it's not that you're automatically on this other side either. It doesn't mean you're part of the resistance. You don't have to be either for it or against it. You can just be you. You can just be whomever you are. And I will say, like, you know, with Justin and characters like him around, and like how far they're pushing us, doesn't, and none of it makes sense. Like the Biden, like, are you kidding me?
I
Like, who
agree.
can possibly like take these people seriously and take these statements seriously anymore? Like, it's become so ridiculously absurd.
You
Like
know
the fake
you know what the
handcuffing, like it's so absurd that, you know, what it's actually doing is that they're pushing us. They're pushing us to create and to build the alternative systems. And it's just like, or we're going, or we're going to become imprisoned
I
by that.
agree.
But I'm not going to be, and you're not going to be like
I
that.
fully agree, because I had an opportunity to speak with Lee Dundas. She is fighting all the school boards and Newsom in California. And she said what's going to happen, because we're being forced to be creative. When there is the breakdown, the only businesses and the economies that will exist will be the people who woke up, who created alternative systems. Those will be
Mhm.
the only people. And I like what you actually were pointing out. The highest archetype is the Joker. The person who can laugh at the kings and laugh at the absurdity in life and not take it serious. I know I had many members of my family who died during the Holocaust, and when I listened to the stories, they could have left, but they were too attached, and they wanted to stick their heads in the ground. Even though there were warnings that they should leave, they chose not to, because they were attached to their lives. And yes, there's terrible people who do terrible things. But if you're going to come looking for me with a gun, I don't have to stay in my house so you can find me.
Absolutely
And that's
not.
where Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and changing your entire life, because I never thought myself I was going to die in Toronto. I never thought I was ever going to leave that city. That was my city. But the last few years, I don't even think I might ever see that city again.
Without, like, you know, human connection and culture, like, what the hell's the point? Like, why? I mean, and so many other people have left. So so that's why, like, you know, I'm here in Florida. I'm having a great time. I was just at the beach. We just went to a restaurant. Not a single person there was wearing a face nanny, and we're just living and we're happy. And it's great. And, like, you know, and by sharing this too, it's like, you know, what did Kyle do differently? I don't know.
He
He
lived.
didn't. He didn't go. He moved. He lived. He didn't go along with all the bullshit. He stood up against fear and, like, you know, decided that he didn't have to live, like, you know, according to what expectations of others. Like, I'm not bound to others'
Well,
expectations
that's
except for
interesting
my
that
wife's.
that's interesting that you shared that, because the way that we've been able to, not me or you, because I think what we broke the matrix is people fear death. They fear dying, therefore they never live. There was a book that I read in 2011. It was on the great ending, and it starts this way. There's this professor, philosophy prof. A student comes to him and says, "Professor, why should it even work? Because the world, according to the Mayans, ends in December 2012. So why should I even continue?" And what he investigated and what he came up with says there's always going to be the ending, but the real fear is the fear of you and I not waking up. That's what prevents people from living. And that's how the power structures of whoever is doing this, they know this. if you've ever read that, and I would recommend anyone listen to this, and I'm probably going to put it up online, the Bitterman coercion chart. They studied the POWs who came back from Korea who had been turned on America, and they determined that there were 7 levels of coercion. And if you look at what's happened to populations and how they've been able to control them, this has been implemented step by step by step. It's all there. If you want to do the research, like I joke with people, you want to make a lot of money in the stock market, all you have to do, I'm telling everyone this, go onto the Rockefeller site, the Rockefeller Foundation, go to the World Economic Forum, and go to, I guess, like any government site, and they'll tell you what they're going to do to you. And all you have to do is short the market.
This is, Peter, this has been fantastic.
You've been great. I really, and I would like to be able to do, like, you know, do another time, because I'm sure we can go into, because a lot, if people knew how far down the hole I've gone, already people are not, like, they're already starting to sense that. But all the things I never questioned, it's up to grabs now. That's the greatest thing about this moment. For those of you who take the red pill, to me, what that means is you become a thirsty learner. You connect with people that you would never connect with before. And more importantly, you're present. Because right now, everyone who's taken the blue pill, they're not present to their lives. And before they know it, it's over. And everyone who's taken the red pill, who starts questioning, they're having real dialogues, they're really there. And if you ask anyone who's taking the red pill if they would ever go back, I haven't met one. Would you go back?
You can't.
I know, but would you? Would you be Cypher? Would you be Cypher in the Matrix?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, like, you know, some people definitely, because it's not like, you know, those forces, like, they'll keep coming, because also it's like, you know, when like you start going, as you say, down the rabbit hole, like, yeah, it can be pretty freaky. And it's like, you know, there can be a lot of, like, you know, like, you really like you realize, like, yeah, there's some really bloody monsters out there. Like I kind of wish I didn't know. And that's why I think a lot of people like, you know, they see, like, you know, if they heard us talking, they'd be like, whoa, like, yeah, like, you know, part of them's interested, but then, and, you know, and it's fair. Like, they don't have to. Not everybody's journey is that. Like, some people are just healers, and like, they're not meant, they don't have any interest in, you know, in justice. Like, there's just different archetypes within different people, and it's all good. We have different personalities. You know, but I think at the core is this kind of idea around consciousness, and just being, you know, aware of the danger, and really just rejecting the fear as this controlling paradigm, and, you know, trying to, like, you know, be impeccable with our words, like, not to make too many assumptions, to, you know, not take things personally, and to do our best.
I welcome people who attack me now. And the reason I do it, because they're having a cognitive dissonance. Yeah. And I know it. And the only reason I know it, because I would have been one of those people to write everyone off. But it's because I was starting to, like, you know, crystallize that there was a paradigm shift happening in me, a paradox of everything I was told. So I want to leave this with everyone who's listened to this. Kyle and I have walked down rabbit holes. The thing is, you might be threatened. I will not be angry at anybody who's disagreed with me, who is threatened by me, because really what that is you are going through your own journey, and you know that there's things that don't make sense, and we're just mirroring that. But once you make the switch, the world opens, And that's really what it comes down to. And I want to thank you, Kyle,
Thank you.
for this, because this was
Yeah.
very useful. And I think engaging with Kyle in, discussions like this and bringing him to speak and learning another economy because it exists and being open to it is the way to you taking ownership of your life and sovereignty over it.
Indeed. And thank you to anybody who's, been here for this time, grateful for, having shared this space and consciousness with you. And, I will also say Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian healing prayer. I'm sorry if there's anything that I said, impacted you negatively or caused, I'm really sorry for causing any harm or hurt. Please forgive me. It was not my intention to hurt. I'm really grateful. Thank you for being here and for participating and for your presence and awareness. And know that I love you and I love all, and love at the core is what keeps us there. And, and if I could make one simple ask, it's that you look in the mirror and you say Ho'oponopono to yourself and be self-compassionate with yourself, because it's a moment of reflection that is really kind of healthy for us to be compassionate and to forgive ourselves and to be sorry for our actions and to be grateful and to love ourselves. For when we do all of that, then we can move forward in peace and harmony and love.
Last question. How do people listening find you?
I don't know, Twitter, maybe?
Twitter?
At Kyle Kemper on Twitter is easy. I'm on LinkedIn, Kyle Kemper on LinkedIn. I'm on
Patreon?
Facebook, Patreon, Kyle Kemper. Yeah, that's it. If you really want to you want to support me and support this, because like I said, I just honestly help. Patreon's really cool. If I'd be incredibly grateful for any and all support. 5 kids. it's a trip.
You have a legacy. Well, again, thank you so much. And I'm so honored.